Our first place to live, with me and my mum and my dad, was a caravan, a two-berth caravan, attached to a van on a pub car park. Okay, we're going to go into debt to do what we've got to do, but it will be okay. It will be okay because we're going to earn far more than we could have done before, and we're going to be more reliable and all the rest of it.
What I've understood over time is the fact of most businesses that want a marketing department, they'll buy a great marketing business for whatever they need and plug it in.
The first thing I did to them was I talked about a shareholders agreement if they fell out.
Right.
And they said, well, we're never going to fall out. Obviously, it's history now about them falling out. I don't know any successful person who's got their wealth and success from work that hasn't worked really hard, or an athlete that didn't work really hard. You've gone in with some stress, you've gone in thinking, oh, what a shit day that was. And then I always come out after I've lifted. There's only one way out, and I feel good about myself.
So that together we have clarity, direction, and success way beyond what we ever previously thought possible. Here's your host, Frankie Lee.
First things first, guys, before we get started with this podcast, do me a solid favor and subscribe to this on whatever platform you're listening to it right now. Whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I'd appreciate if you just hit that subscribe button, and it lets me know that the content that I'm putting out for you guys is hitting your ears at the right time. Much love. This podcast is sponsored by ContentRemoval.com. So whether you're looking to remove any images, videos, search results, fake Instagram accounts, get in touch with us at ContentRemoval.com. Welcome back to the Frankie Lee podcast. Today, guys, we are lucky enough to be joined with a man that you guys have asked me for on many occasions, and I'm in the place where we can deliver that. The guy is a serial entrepreneur. He's been involved with Gymshark. He's been involved with Hera most recently. He's been involved in football at all different levels. Mr. Paul Richardson, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Frankie. Welcome to my playground.
Welcome to your playground. Welcome to the gym. I mean, what a setup this is.
Yeah, right. It's my home gym. I mean, I've got Gymshark Lifting Club as well, which I go to, which is the big playground. Yeah, but this is a smaller one.
He says it's small, but he's being really modest right now because it's the most well-equipped gym you'll ever see in your entire life. But Paul, man, what a journey of a career you've had over the time in terms of business and everything that you've done. But I really want to give the audience a real insight into you. I want to take it way back to obviously when it first started, like with you, like I suppose you, not so much the childhood, but like when you were 18 years old, you became a shareholder in a business, and it was obviously waste management. And kind of what kind of propelled you even getting into all that?
It was a family business. I mean, we can go further back if you want.
Yeah,
I think there's a couple of interesting points because, when you look at where you've got to in life, you wonder where you've come from.
Yeah.
And I think people do. My life's quite interesting from the start where, my mum, I was born in 1959, and you're supposed to say, really?
Yeah.
But 1959, my mum and dad met, and my mum got pregnant, and then basically my dad ran off. So my mum was left to take me to what was going to be an orphanage at the time. And when I was born, she decided at that point in time that she couldn't give me away to the orphanage. So she took me back home to her mum and dad, and that was the start. Mad. So, it was quite an unusual sort of start, but it gives a reflection on, where my sort of dad was coming from. And my dad was a bit of a lad, to say the very least. He was a market trader. But, his initial sort of running off, he did come back a while later, about 8 or 9 months later. And they got together, and, sort of, my granddad was a tough old boy. I mean, he didn't take kindly to it, but he sort of straightened my dad up, and they stuck together. So it goes right back to there, really, where things started.
So he kind of made your dad take account for obviously looking after the family and all that stuff.
Yeah, and my dad was a bit of a lad, as I say. I mean, he was a sort of a petty criminal at times, and ended up he went to prison a couple of 3 times. So nothing bad, but it was just his. He wasn't a very good criminal. Let's put it that way. But eventually, at the right time, he decided, after my mum sort of said to him, never again, you're not doing that again to me. He went into business where he had I think it was a grocery store. and that was his start off in business. And he came up from absolutely nothing. I think our first, just flicking back again there, our first place to live with me and my mum and my dad was a caravan, a 2-berth caravan, attached to a van on a pub car park. And that's sort of where it all started. And my mum didn't know where he got a caravan from, by the way.
Yes, so if you've lost a caravan, guys, yeah. He's not responsible.
Yeah.
But in relation to like seeing, how old were you when you first realised that did you realise when you were younger that your dad had kind of like had to really step up? Is that something you'd felt?
Yeah, I mean, I was I'm from a family of 4 in the end. There's 4 of us, got a brother and 2 sisters. But yeah, I mean, I was always interested. He was a hard worker, even though he'd made some mistakes in life, but he'd sort of turned it around. But he was always a hard worker, always a good provider in life. I talk to my mum about that now. My mum's still alive. She's 91. And she always says to me that he always worked really hard. He would like his cigarettes and he would like a drink, but he always put the food on the table first. And I think that's always stuck in my head as a really, really good thing, in that, you're a provider, you're a protector, and I've taken that through all of my life, especially with my family and people close to me.
And I suppose, having daughters and stuff like that, as you're trying to bring them through, you always want to provide something for them. Do you know what I mean? And in business as well, you like to take care of your business and stuff like that before you start. Because I know when we were talking pre-podcast, and we'll flick back into this in the future of the story, but it's like knowing when to take money out of the business and when to keep it in there to keep that thing rolling on, isn't it?
Yeah, there's different types of businesses, and at the end of the day, you work really hard and you want to try and get something to show for it. Some people like to show more than they've got. I mean, but that's up to them. I think for me, it's a case of doing sort of both. You need to reward yourself as you're going along accordingly, so that you can keep going. Making it worthwhile. What's your goals? What you're looking for? Some people it is money. Some people want the wealth and everything goes with it. And with other people, it's not quite that. It can be all sorts of reasons. It can be status. It can be proving themselves, or insecurities they're trying to sort of quash as they go along.
Yeah. Did you from your childhood and the way that your childhood carried out, did you have anything that you kind of had to get over and move through in terms of like your mind and kind of like your feelings towards certain things that may have happened as you were growing up?
I was really, really shy as a child, and that alone was sort of a little bit of a loner. But I always loved work. Always loved, my dad used to go and he'd work, and I always wanted to be with him to do work of some description. I was always, I wanted to learn more all the time about things. And I think it was the work that I realised I was actually quite good at. And I was used to, I could work hard. Probably not the brightest in the world, but I think it was overcoming that shyness. I know when I was younger, I had a stammer. And, I don't quite remember it, but sort of it's there somewhere. My mom's told me about it. So I think it was that sort of shyness, insecurity, sort of thing that made me want to prove myself.
Yeah, and when did you start going to learn like the elements of business that have took you to where you are now? Like when did you start to feel that entrepreneurial pull in terms of like, I don't want to have just a job where I go to work every day. I want to go into business. I want to be a leader of my own destiny.
I think that was watching my dad. He wasn't the most sophisticated businessman at all. Far from it, probably. But just watching him do the things he did. Doing different sort of deals, buying and selling things, and always trying to stay ahead. A little bit of ducking and diving, that sort of thing. But just watching, you get so much from observing and watching and sometimes staying quiet, but just observing what's going on and thinking, oh, okay, yeah, I can take that on board. So I think, that was from a really young age when I used to do that, because I was with my dad quite a lot, and with other people as well, his friends and business guys, because they were all self-employed. They were all they didn't have a proper job.
Yeah, and I think England is one of them places where a lot of people starting off have to bob and weave here in terms of like do a little bit of this and a little bit of that to make a little bit of cash to go and do this over here. Like everyone has that kind of upbringing here where you have to kind of hustle.
I think they do. I think it's less and less now. I think people think it's a lot easier now to just, start something online, have a load of Instagram sort of followers, and they can sell to them.
Yep.
And they don't actually realise the sort of things you've got to do, the ducking and diving. As a for instance, I've done it a few times where I've gone to the cash point on a Friday with my credit card, drawn the cash out so I can pay the wages for the guys that work for me. And I don't know if today people would do that level of commitment.
And you're talking about doing that on your personal credit card, business.
Yeah. Because again, you're realising that your workers, no matter if it's 1 or 101 or 1,001, they're there to get paid at the end of the week or the end of the month.
Yeah, and
so you can't let them down.
And obviously you feel that pull because obviously when you're working so closely with these people, you know that they've got families, they've got mortgages, they've got everything else to pay, and as a brand owner or brand builder or CEO of anything, you kind of wear that, don't you?
Oh yeah, it's your responsibility. You take that on board. You take in the accolades and all the sort of the headlines, but also you take in the shit as well because you have to. And if you don't, then you shouldn't be in that position. But sometimes I've had whole families work for me. The mom, the dad, the son, the daughter, the cousins, in the waste businesses, that's what it was generally like, sort of, you didn't do the process like I would have done, say, further down the line at more professional businesses. It was who can do this job? Oh, yeah, I know them. Okay, get them in, we'll get them to do it. And you end up with a whole family, and, that's a big responsibility.
Yeah, because obviously there's a lot of risk if you've got to lay anyone off. Is that a pressure? Obviously, you're a dad. Is that a pressure? Like, is it similar to like being a dad? Is it a similar pressure in terms of like the dynamic of being a CEO where you got these families working for you and then your own family? Is it the same kind of pressure, or is it slightly different? The
own family working for you, or just
no? I mean, as in like you feel like you got to protect and provide for your daughters and systemise that, but then obviously you feel like this family who's worked for you for 20 years. At this point,
anyone who works for you is part of your family, as far as I'm concerned. You're there to protect them. I mean, for me, when you've got a team of people, if you're a leader of that team of people, whatever it might be, whether it's 5 or 500, I always say, and I've said this to teams in the past, is if something happens, I'll take the bullet for you. I'll take that bullet, but I'm going to come back with a bullet, and I'm going to say right now, who caused me to have that bullet? But to the outside world, I don't want them to know that it was someone back here. I'm going to protect you. Yeah. And you see a lot of that now with football managers. If you notice, they don't criticise their team, but damn right, when they go back in that dressing room, you give them hell to play.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
I think Mourinho is a phenomenal man manager of doing that. I've seen him hand it to people when they need handing it to, but at the end of the day, he knows.
Yeah, you need to take the bullets, but then you should be tougher and more resilient than the guys in behind you, hopefully. Because that's where you are and that's why you're there. But then you can sort of go back and say, okay, guys, now what went wrong?
Yeah.
What the fuck went wrong? Come on. And then you get it out there and you have that behind the scenes, closed doors, that's okay, sort it out, come back out again, everything's happy.
Yeah, I think there's too much these days in people transacting personal problems or business problems in the public domain.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of things that are different now, and, I've learned a lot about probably in the last 3 years, especially about working a little bit different. I'm not a massive believer in this big committee type decision-making thing. I think, people love leaders and they aspire to be a leader. They look up to leaders. You don't want a dictator, but a leader's different.
Yeah. So you just want to make sure that you can come. Ultimately the decision lies with you, and then when the decision lies with you as a business or brand owner, you can then know when something goes wrong, you're happy to take full responsibility of it because you finalise that decision. Whereas if it's a committee, isn't it? You kind of think, well, I didn't even really want to do that, but I got outvoted 5-1.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of the time it's the best idea wins. I mean, that's a Steve Hewitt saying, and I really believe in it. So I think you can have an element of like checking in with your team and, stuff like that. But I don't think it should be, by committee. I'm just a believer in leaders, but then leaders who stand on.
Yeah.
You stand on for what you've done and okay, fine, come back. And there's nothing better, I think, than sometimes when you do make that mistake, and you will. I mean, success is just making more good decisions than bad. It's as simple as that, as far as I'm concerned. But when you make that wrong decision or something goes wrong, you just say, right, okay, yeah, I got that wrong, didn't I, guys? And if you admit that in front of your team, you'll find empathy, and they'll admire you more for doing that than you would do if you just go, oh, that was someone else's fault over there.
Yeah, and I think it's that self-awareness to know that where the responsibility lies as well.
Yeah. I mean, it lies with you.
Did you find self-awareness is something that's gone on and developed in you? It's not something. Was it something that was natural to you, or was it something that's developed massively over the last 10 or 20 years?
I think it's developed, and I think it just consistently keeps developing. You learn new things all the time. So what I was like I believe managing people is probably the best skill set you'll ever have, because again, you can be really talented at something, but managing people is the hardest thing to ever do, because they're living, moving things. For me, it's developed over time, and people have changed, so you have to adapt yourself. So just because I'm my age, I can't think the same, can't operate the same as I did when I was 30.
Right.
Because things are now different. Different things can be said, different things work with people. Psychology is different. But again, for me, it's you learning as you go along, soaking it up and taking it on board.
What are some of the key psychology pieces that you've learned over time in the way that you communicate that gets the best out of people then?
Literally all of them. Everyone's different, so they'll require a different way of talking to them. Some people, need a real big push. Some people need their arms around them. Some people might even need shouting at sometimes, different things. But I think for me, it's the adaptation of all the different ways of doing it, especially if you're operating with a team of some description, whether that's C-suite, or whether it's, just a smaller team, that you're managing of some description, if you're a manager or a team lead or whatever. The same applies all along. I think for me, it's always about sort of adapting the different levels you've got to do. And almost like the way I look at it is you're the conductor of an orchestra, and you've got, the trombone player, the violinist and the trumpet player. They're all different. They're all wonderful in their own right, but they all require a different sort of level of but you're there to bring them together and make that sort of, that one sound, second sound, third sound, now it's a song, or it's a symphony.
A symphony, yeah. Yeah, and I suppose, again, with that, it's something that comes to you over time. It's like you don't just go in one day, meet someone, and I presume you don't just meet someone and think, this is someone I'm going to have to put a rocket up at some point in time.
You need to weigh things up. You need to just get to know them. But for me, it is a constant learning curve. If you want to keep learning, like I do, I enjoy it. The different dynamics of all the different, you're ranging now. They start calling them, the millennials, Gen Z, or whatever they are. I love learning about how they think and what they do. And that a lot of that came from Gymshark, because that was sort of having to manage so many people and think about so many people. You have to understand why they thought like they thought. Yeah. So get into it. Psychology, that's the thing.
I just want to take it back, because obviously waste management was your first business. Is it something that kind of you thought, do you know what, I can really push this on here, because obviously you went into that was your dad's business, right?
Yeah, it was originally my dad's business, and it was a small sort of skip hire business. I used to work there, worked every hour I could, and then when I left school, went to work there as a mechanic. I couldn't drive trucks at that time, you had to be 21. So I worked as a mechanic and under horrible smelly trucks and things like that. Suddenly realised that within that business, my dad, as I said, was a good businessman, but only to a certain point. And we had older trucks, we had older equipment, and everything used to break down all the time, and it was really hard work. But he didn't really like debt.
Right, okay.
He dealt in cash. He didn't really like debt. So again, it was if he could buy the truck, it would be a used one. If I buy, containers, skips, they'll be used. So, and that was fantastic. That was okay. But I saw that there was more to the marketplace. And at that time, skip hire was sort of like fledgling, sort of, it was just starting off. I mean, skips at that time were £8 to hire a big skip.
Wow.
So, that, if anyone's in the UK listening, they'll know they're sort of £250 now or something. So that's how far back that goes. I left in protest when I was 19.
Is that just because you weren't seeing them?
Yeah, I couldn't get him to change, and I left in protest, and I went to work in a factory where it was sort of 8 till 5 or whatever, and did that, and sort of had no stress for a while. And eventually we used to talk all the time, and we sort of fell out, but then we sort of didn't, we hadn't fallen out, And eventually he said, I want you to come back, and I said, I'll only come back if we do this, this and this, and that was to buy 2 new trucks and some, more equipment and things like that, and he agreed. And we did that, and we just blossomed from there, and we then became, I think that was back in, it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
So we then became the largest went from skip hire to waste management company in the West Midlands in really quick time. And we had 100 trucks and thousands of containers and etc. But it was that starting point of me proving to him that, okay, we're going to go into debt to do what we've got to do, but it will be okay. It will be okay because we're going to earn far more than we could have done before, and we're going to be more reliable and all the rest of it. And
how important do you think debt is to a business in terms of being able to use that to grow?
I think it has to be sensible. But I definitely think it's part of a business, and you can't really. It's very difficult to avoid. A lot of businesses now, immediately put huge valuations on themselves really early doors and start raising money and selling equity and things like that. And again, that's just it's a different route than we did, way back. We did it all through organic or a bank overdraft or hire purchase and stuff like that. I definitely think it's part of it. You just need to manage it, because again, if you're taking borrowing money at, I'll use a number at the moment, 5%, but you can earn 25%, then the numbers stack up.
Then the numbers go.
Yeah, but it's no good borrowing at 5 if you're only earning 5.
Yeah, it's all about it's a numbers game when you're talking about debt and taking on capital, isn't it?
Yeah, being sensible, and it's making sure sometimes there's no choice. Sometimes it can be equity. You want to release again. That's That's okay. Again, you might as well own 50% of a much bigger pie than 100% of a small pie.
Well, if you look at the major brands like Apple and Microsoft and stuff like that, even though they've got cash on the balance sheet, they'll still take on more debt than spend the cash on the balance sheet.
Yeah, there's a lot of places do that. A lot of very wealthy people do it, where to borrow money is cheap. So again, they'll use borrowed money instead, because again, less of a risk.
Yeah, no, it's a phenomenal way to operate, as long as you understand how the breakdown goes in terms of the returns on the investment in it. So obviously you go on to waste management. Then you exited that business. You took an exit from the waste management firm. Yeah,
so we sold that company in 1989. So before maybe a lot of the listeners might have even been born, but
I was one.
Yeah, I was just under 30. So we sold it to an American company, second biggest in the world, and they sold us a story of taking me, and I was going to be this wonderful thing, and I was going to manage all these sort of places. That didn't happen. It was all a bit of a sort of red herring, and it really wasn't working. So I stayed there for 21 months, and then I started my own waste company up in 1992. So that was my next one.
And there wasn't a non-competing component?
It was 3 years, from 89 to 92. In between time, my dad passed away. He passed away when I was 30. So he had that sort of wealth and money for about a year. He didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't really what he wanted. He still drove around in a van. I think I had to buy him a Mercedes. I made him buy a Mercedes, which he'd always wanted. I sort of literally took him down to the showroom and said, right, you're having that one. But he was quite a humble man.
Is that when you first learnt that, money isn't always the end goal, in terms of like having all that wealth, but then not being part of something, or not having a bigger purpose than you was always important as well?
Yeah, I think when I did that, they promised me so much, and it was, I thought, well, this will be real. I won't say good fun. This will be good for me. I was just under 30 years old. But yeah, it wasn't. We had money. My father passed, and then it was okay, fine. now what we're going to do. But, that spurred me on. Wanted to prove, I could do it on, totally on my own, although a lot of the time, my dad didn't take an active part towards the end. He wasn't very well. But yeah, starting again was just an amazing thing to do. And, again, from 92 to 2000, we built up again the largest waste management company in the Midlands, and really successful. And we sold it to the company that bought the previous company.
So you took an 18 years to get back to where you were?
8 years.
8 years to get back to where you were?
Yeah. Really, it's fast progress again. It was much bigger. So I think the turnover of the first one was around 2.2 million. The second time I was at 10 million.
And then you exit that.
Exited in 2000.
What was it like to exit that again? Was it like a bit of a bittersweet moment for you? Like, I've just kind of proved myself to you guys again and just sold you another company now.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't as good as you think. It's again, I've listened to a lot of other people talk about this, where you get to that summit, and then it's like, so what? What now? And I know that was a moment for me, because I immediately went in and bought 2 other companies and sort of launched off again to do some other stuff.
You didn't give yourself no break?
I had about a week off, which was a real mistake. Yeah, I should have had a longer time off, because it was a hard work around that time. Yeah,
just because you're still processing all the stuff from your dad and everything.
No, I was years on from that. But doing the sale of the second company was, I was selling a company, which is hard enough as you're doing it, because again, in those days, you didn't want to tell your staff what you're doing, because it wasn't the done thing, and you needed to hide it. And then eventually you have to tell someone, and you're really worried about it. I was then negotiating for the new companies at the same time, and also you're running the company that you've got. So big strain, and puts a big strain on you, which was hard work. But then, getting there to have that amount of money and thinking, okay, I've got this, and, you buy your holiday home in Spain or whatever, and you do what you do. But it's still not enough. It's what's next.
So when you were a kid, when you were 18 and all that stuff, and when you first got into waste management, did you ultimately have a set goal? Was there a goal of like 10 million, 15 million, or was there any goals in that respect, or was it just or is it just something you're just like, let's just keep going, keep spinning this wheel?
My goals were all around cars. I wanted a Porsche when I was 25, because in those days you couldn't insure a Porsche until you were 25. Literally couldn't do it. It was simply like that. I think nowadays you can. It just costs you a fortune. So I achieved that, and it was there was mainly lots of smaller goals in terms of that. But it's always been for me is about being self-sufficient, having the choice for what I want to do. It was never about in essence sort of having a yellow Lamborghini and showing that to everyone. I've had Porsches since I was 25. So again, I used to drive to work in the waste management company in a Porsche. It was just one of them things. But everyone knew that I would be in work, sort of 6 a.m. I wouldn't leave till 6 or 7 at night, or later sometimes. So as far as I was concerned, I earned it. It didn't bother me that people might say, "Oh, he's got a Porsche." I would say, "Well, fine. I worked really hard." So you get over it.
Yes, so like literally like every goal that you had in regards to business was just all about like, I want to have the Porsche, I want to have this car, I want to have this car, I want to have this car.
Yeah, it was a house, a Porsche. It was quite small things. Again, in comparison to people wanting 10 million, 20 million, maybe nowadays. I think I was maybe, but for me also, it was about being successful. I think it goes back to that childhood thing about being shy. It was showing that, okay, I can do this, and, I can overcome. I started with absolutely nothing, as I said, where my mum and dad came from. I think that's relevant. So, I wasn't handed anything. So, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm helping my kids now. I'm giving them a head start, I believe. I don't believe I'm handing stuff to them. The way I look at it is they've now got a head start that I never had. If I'd have had that head start, who knows where I might have got to.
But how do you define success for you?
Well, that's a good question. That's a real good question. I think for me, I like to be independent. I like to be in control. I like the choice that the success gives me in terms of the money, which is one thing. That will give me the choices that I can make. But I think it's what I've done for the industries I've been in, and making a mark, actually leaving your mark to say, people will remember you for that. That's really important to me. The legacy side of things is really important. Sort of waste management would not be the same if I hadn't been in it, and I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
I was in nappy recycling. I was regarded as the second most knowledgeable person in the world on it. And again, I've left a legacy there of what we did.
Because you designed all the tech around how nappies could be recycled.
Yeah.
When nappies were going into landfill, right?
Yeah. We built pilot plants, and it was prove that you could recycle dirty nappies and incontinent waste. But again, I think it's that sort of proving that you can do something, doing it different, leaving that legacy where people can look back and think, okay, that was Paul Richardson. He was there. And that's quite important to me.
It's just the knowing that you've touched something and left something to the world for you, rather than that, and then ultimately the freedom of what comes from the capital that you can generate from business.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you choice. I mean, money, does not give you the happiness that everyone might think, or some people might think. So not everyone, but it'll give you the choice. And whatever that choice might be. My passion is the gym. It gives me the choice to have a gym here at home that, I can not use any other gym if I didn't want to. And sometimes that choice is what I want. I don't want to be outside. I want to be here and de-stress in my own gym, which is great.
Because obviously your passion in the gym is obviously powerlifting.
Yeah, I mean, I've just the gym, but I do like lifting heavy. That's my thing. I like to lift. I've done the bodybuilding competition. Did that when I was about 53, I think, 54. So got my little sort of pants on and went on stage and all, tanned up. That was great fun. I really, really enjoyed that. I would love to do it again. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. But it's just something to say you've actually done it.
Because how old are you right now?
63.
63, and you want to do it again?
I'd love to do it again.
So when I'm going to hold you to this. I'm going to hold you to this, right?
If I can get the time, which again, my family will be moaning at me again, saying where are you going to get the time from? But yeah, I'd love to do. I'd love to do it again. Get on stage.
When this happens, I'm coming to watch.
Yeah,
I'll say wherever I am in the world. I swear down. If you get on stage again at 64, 65, in that condition, it's on. And we're doing it. But I just think, obviously, you've gone through such an extraordinary journey because of how many industries you've been in. It's the amount when you read through your book of industries, you go from waste management, you go All Saints, you go Gymshark, you go at Hera, you bought that brand, and there's probably other things that I don't know in between. But it's like, is that part of your drive towards this success? Is just to touch as many different industries and niches as possible as well.
Well, they're sort of connected in a way. I mean, to be fair with it looks like with All Saints, I didn't do a lot at All Saints in terms of the sort of business itself. I was around to buy it. I was around to help. I was around to Mick Dunn and Stuart Trevor, the guys that did most of the work there. But again, if I hadn't been there and I hadn't been involved, it wouldn't have happened. But I sort of a little bit of knowledge there that I gained when it went into Gymshark. It taught me the most about sort of the e-com and retail sales environment. I'd never really knew. So for me now going into Hera, it's made that a lot easier. But again, it's not me knowing everything, and I think we spoke earlier about business and employing people who are far better than you at what they do. So for me, that's what it's about, and it comes from a guy. He's passed away now. A guy called Rod Actual, an old friend of mine. We were sitting in south of France somewhere on holiday, way back, and he had a fish company. So he brought crab sticks into the UK, the fish sticks, whatever you call them.
Yeah,
he's famous for bringing those into the UK, and then he went and had a construction company, and I was asking him, and I was like, "How'd you go from that to that?" And he said, "Well, I don't have to lay bricks to have a construction company. I just need to know how to manage people and employ the best that do laying bricks, etc." And that really stuck with me. So whenever there's been an opportunity come up that, moving into Gymshark was in essence, okay, well, what do you know about that? It wasn't. I didn't have to know how to sell something or how to make a legging or whatever. So for me, it was about doing what I do best, which was organising the the things in the background and putting the foundations in with people like Steve Hewitt and Rich Chappell and those sort of guys, and letting the other guys do their tricks,
do their things,
do what they do, and that's the same with anything else now. It's just about making sure you've got the best people in the best position and managing those people.
Because obviously Ben holds you entirely responsible for putting in the structure that was put in at Gymshark to be able for them to be where they are today. He speaks about that in quite a few videos.
Yeah, I mean, I was luckily they could afford to have someone like me in the background. When I went full time, so when we finished at No Waste, and Gymshark was there saying, "Come on, we need you, we need you, we need you." I was like, "Okay," I went. And it was, what do you do best? And it was, I'd already done several things, bringing accountants in, the right accountants, bringing the right insurers in, bringing the right lawyers in. People I trusted implicitly that, the lawyers were far too big for Gymshark at the time, but they gave us great advice and, they've stuck with Gymshark all the way through, and they're still my lawyers now on all the transactions I do. Accountants, lawyers and things like that. And then it was having me in the background to be able to do some of the things that would harm the business if, you had to slow it down. So, when Lewis, I think was maybe 2016-ish, I'm not sure, when Lewis was coming out of the business, I handled most of that. And in that period, we went from sort of, I think 13 mil turnover to 41. Following year, we went from 41 to over 100. So, it meant that the guys could still concentrate on their stuff while I was in the background building some of the stuff and, helping out with, say, the 3PL. Starting off that, we hadn't done 3PL. Property I helped out with. All the sort of, a little bit boring from some people, but very necessary.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're building on sand.
Yeah, the infrastructure that Gymshark have in terms of 3PLs and the partnership they've gone, I can't figure the name of the company.
Bleckman
and Gymshark, the way that they operate together across the world now is just phenomenal.
Well, that also comes from some of the stuff that Steve and I, really recommended to Ben at the time, which is about partnerships. So again, for me, one of the biggest things you'll learn in business is, if you just want to do a deal with someone once, then there can only be one winner. You can nail someone so far down on price that literally they can't afford to do the job, or it's substandard or whatever it is, and you'll never use them again. If you start to realise that everyone has to earn money in business, that's what you're in it for as a general rule, because you've got to pay your bills first.
Yeah.
We all want to have a nice business life as well, and we want to enjoy it. But there's a commerce thing there. There's a money thing there. You make partnerships over time, and that means that then through time and good times and bad times, those partners will work with you. So when you need something back off that partner, they'll say, "Okay, yeah, fine," because they helped us out a couple of years ago, didn't they, on this? So I think that in particular, the Bleckman, and there's many other partnerships in Gymshark and other businesses that I deal with. It's one of the biggest things for me is build partnerships throughout your business life. And then you can also then go back to them to help you in something else, like I've done.
So it's all to you about structuring the win-win, so that every time you go into a transaction, no one's leaving like they've felt like they've lost something.
I always go in thinking we're both actually rowing the same way. Even though I'm buying off you, we're actually rowing the same way. We want to do something with a product or a service. So I'm trying to understand what you want out of it. And if I think you're asking me too much, then I'm going to start sort of questioning you and trying to work out, okay, are they trying to get too much out of this? And then also saying, well, this isn't just a one deal. We want to get this as more deals. So, let's see where we can get. And getting it to a partnership. So understanding the other person or the people, company, it's like understanding your enemy in a sense. If you were at war, you're trying to understand what their next move is and why their next move is their next move. Yeah. And it's like that, but it's a partnership. That's what you're trying to do. And working out, you're shaking hands at the end, actually rowing that way, down that sort of river.
Because at the end of the day, when you're talking about like what Bleckman and Gymshark have, they've both got the same. They've both got the same end goal, really. When you actually break it down, because one holds product and one makes product, and together he puts it in the customer's hand. And if they both do that, then they're both going to win.
Yeah, and it's it's the same for the lawyers. The lawyer wants to get the deal done. The lawyer's going to be far more careful than you are doing that deal, because they're lawyers. They're naturally careful people. So you need to get the lawyer to be commercial with you and understand what the risk is. And then basically you'll work together and you'll say to them, okay, I'm okay with that risk. I know you're not, but I'm okay with it. I'm the client, so let's put that together and then we get the deal signed off.
Yeah.
And you're working together to get it done. So it becomes a partnership rather than thinking, that was shit advice, wasn't it?
Because
actually,
you tried to nail them on price.
Yeah, because you're nailing everything down, and you want to get the best deal, you want to get the best whatever you want to get. But for me, the long term is far better. It's far more enjoyable, and I believe it's far more profitable in the end for everyone. So everyone wins.
Yeah. Would you say then that most of the people that you're around in business are just people that you consistently do business with over the years in different ventures?
I've done that for quite a while. I mean, I'm just talking to one of my companies now that I've just got involved with, BB Iconics, and they want to do something with the NHS in Scotland. Well, with No Waste, I dealt with the government and the NHS in Scotland, so I've got to dig out my phone book and dig out my stuff there to say, okay, fine. There might be old contacts because it's a little while, but if they're still there or they know someone who's still there, I can then go, do you remember me? They'll say yes, and then we can go back in and hopefully I can just pass that on to these guys and connect them straight into the Scottish Government or NHS or something like that.
And that's where the value comes in.
Yeah, because again, I didn't leave the Scottish Government or the NHS guys there with a big sour taste in their mouth. We did some good work, we did some fantastic things, so we left on a good footing.
Yeah, I love it. I love the analogy of how you position it, and then constantly throughout your life, you can go back and call on things that as long as you've left it in a good position, you've kind of put it in a good stead.
And sometimes it doesn't always happen. It doesn't always happen. But I always think, I used to think when I had the waste contracts, and someone else, another company would go in, and they would give them a better price and whatever, and rather than sort of bitching over it and pulling all the containers out and leaving the customer in the lurch, come out gracefully, because the likelihood is that company that's gone in might mess up, and they're going to call? They're going to probably call you back in, and then you're going to go, okay, yeah, well, I was doing it for £5. Unfortunately, now it's costing £5.50. But you're getting a good service because the last people just let you down. And they'll go, oh yeah, okay, fine, and then you're back in again. But again, you're left gracefully, thoughtfully, respectfully.
Yeah. No, I'm hearing every word you're saying right there, because I think about some of the times when I could have done business with certain people, but they'd kind of left a sour taste in my mouth, and I'm like, well, it's a bit unfortunate now, because we could have done some good business here, and it's just why did you have to operate like that? Because it just costs nothing, does it?
It's short term, isn't it?
Yeah, short term.
Some people always want to nail that deal. I want the absolute cheapest possible, everything. Feel like they're in the power seat all the time. Well, even when you don't get the lowest price, you're still in the power seat. You've got the job done, and you probably get it done better, and then you'll get the next job as well, and the next job, and the next job. And
it's about removing that ego so that everything doesn't have to be about you in business, because it's a two-way street.
Yeah, you both got to win here. You've got to let them win what they want. And, I've done loads of deals. I mean, we do stuff now whereby, if we're in a contract scenario, you might throw some things in you want to give them back. You never wanted them in the first place. So, when you maybe you're buying a company or something, you might put 3 clauses in you never wanted in the first place, but you always can give them back afterwards.
If they pass, you win, and if they call up and say, I don't want that in there, you say, no worries, we'll take that out.
Take that, I'll just give you that.
Yeah, and then that's such honestly, that is wisdom. That is, whoever's listening to this, just real dial into that, because I think that is gold. I think that is a gold way to operate. I want to take it back again, because obviously people might not know this, but I want people to know this. Like, you were known as the business guy in the gym, right? In the David Lloyd back in the day, and Ben and Lewis, they approached you for advice all the time when they were in the early days of Gymshark. What did you kind of see in them that made you think, these boys got a bit of a chance here. We can do something with this. We can run, but they just need to, move a few things about. And
yeah, I mean that was late 2013, and there was the two dynamics. There was Lewis, who was the louder one, and Ben, who was the quieter one, the introvert. And they always train with a bunch of lads. There was some other lads, Craig and a couple of other guys in there who used to train together. And yeah, they just keep asking me questions, different things. Some, just I can't even think of the questions, but just questions about business. What do we do with this? What do we do with that? What do you think of this? For me, it was the persistence, because they just kept coming back, and I think Lewis used to say, it's like pecking your head. That's what he used to say. I'm going to peck your head now. And I think it was just that I had a real interest in the gym, even in those days, and them changing the dynamics of what the design was at that time from, sort of tracky bottoms at the time were big, so quite baggy things, to this more slimmer fit. I thought this is really good. This is different. So it was just the different ideas. They had the enthusiasm they had. It was like unbridled. I suppose I went a bit back to my sort of 18, 19-year-olds. Yeah, well, I was like, when I was 18, I'd work like 4 days on the trot, 4 days and 3 nights and stuff like that, and they were doing those sort of mad things, and it was like, they were just a bit mad with it, young, and I think that was it. It was that, and I think probably a little bit of it as well was, that fatherly thing, sort of,
just wanted to put your arm around.
Yeah, I mean, like, a couple of young lads. I mean, I've got 2 girls, and they're absolutely wonderful. But maybe from that point of view, I never had a son, and maybe that was sort of kicking in. I don't really know, but I like both of them, to be fair.
And did you remember kind of what state the business was in and where it was at, kind of quite well, in terms of like when you walked in there?
So initially, it was around about 4.5 million. I think there was 8 staff. Most of them were friends and family, so Lewis's sister, Ben's brother, and it was their friends and things like that. So completely disorganised. It was just fun to them. It was just a bit of a laugh, and they were making money. I think they both at the time drove R8 Audi sports cars.
Yeah.
So they'd sort of
a typical e-com car, that is.
Yeah, they had a real good Black Friday probably, and then went and bought themselves it. They always bought the same each, so they had to have the same because of 2 of them. They had 50-50. So again, it was a good business, but it was just a little bit chaotic. It was really chaotic. There was no substance to it, but they were making good money.
Yeah. So by substance, you mean there's no executive suite up there. There's no.
Not even that. They didn't really. I don't even know if they had insurance. Their accountant should never have been an accountant. There was no numbers. There was no. They didn't have any stock count of any description. If it was, it was seat of the pants. But I think again, another Steve Hewitt saying is that you don't know what you don't know.
So how did you? So you go in there, you see all this, and it's obviously not ideal. What was some of the first things that you went and changed and put in place?
So it was recommending lawyers. So the first thing I did to them was I talked about a shareholders agreement. If they fell out,
right,
and they said, "Well, we're never going to fall out." Obviously, it's history now about them falling out and Lewis leaving. So that was probably the best thing I've ever done, was recommend they have a shareholders agreement, so that if they did fall out, there would be a mechanism for them to work it out legally. So that was one of the very first things I did. And it was always a struggle with them, because again, you had to sort of push a bit to get things done. The most pivotal moment was when they'd ordered some stock. Their suppliers at the time were a company in China. They didn't really know who they were at that point, and they hadn't delivered, and they were just out of stock, and couldn't sell anything. And it was just getting. I think Ben came to the gym. He looked really ill, and he hadn't slept for 3 or 4 days, worrying about it. At that point, I arranged. So I said, "Okay, I'll make a phone call." I'd got a friend of mine who was buying clothes and stuff out of Turkey. So that was a 3 week. I think 3 weeks to get it on the road. Whereas I think to put it on the boat in China was, I think that time, like about 20 weeks or something stupid. I can't think when. So I said, "Look, you need to find another supplier." So called my mate. arranged a meeting which had to be in my office because they hadn't got any tables and chairs to sit at, because it was just such a mess at the unit in Bromsgrove. And this guy came along, and he brought another guy with him. So I was Ben and Lewis's sort of consultant about it, and they brought their consultant, which was actually Steve Hewitt. So
who was former CEO?
I'd seen him in the gym. So again, it's just the Bromsgrove gym's got a lot to answer for. I'd seen Steve in the gym, but didn't know him at all. Just knew him to walk past and maybe nod at, just because he was working out of there. And then we had the meeting. They could do something in Turkey, and all that went well. But then I spoke to Steve afterwards, because he really sort of contributed to the meeting. And I said, okay, what do you do? And he was like, well, I'm ex-Reebok, I did this, I did that. I was like, okay.
I got an idea here.
I got an idea. So I went to the guys and said, you need Steve. He's got the experience. I can only do what I can do, but he's got the commercial experience. So we took on Steve as a consultant initially. I think it was a couple of days a week. Then it went to 3 days a week, and then snowballed into you needed now as MD. So we started off as MD.
Talk me through the conversation. After he was MD, obviously he goes to be CEO, right? Talk me, because I presume, I'm just thinking outside the box here, but I presume that you kind of identified that at that time that Ben wasn't right to kind of be the founder CEO.
To be fair, we had a real good dynamic in the business. Once Lewis had exited, there was actually 3 of us. So again, you never came out of the room with not having a decision. It didn't matter, and again, you didn't come out bitching either. If you were the 1 and they were the 2, you didn't bitch about it. It was like, okay, fine, that's the decision. We're off. Let's go. And it just became apparent at the time because, again, like most businesses now, someone starts a business. Oh, I'm the CEO. Back in my day, it used to be the managing director. The CEO was somewhere up there somewhere. And obviously, Ben and Lewis, I think, were joint CEOs. Then, when Lewis went, it left Ben as the CEO. But he literally hadn't got the experience of any way, shape, or form to do that at that time. And he also recognised it as well as us. So again, it was a joint decision. It wasn't, you're not good enough, you need to come down. It was a joint decision.
I think it was very powerful though how he took it and identified it, and then also went and knew that he had to learn through the game so that he could step back into that role.
Yeah, and he's very good at that. That's one of his absolutely brilliant points in his ability to, and that's what he saw in Steve and I at that time, and other people. There's been other people in the business for Ben to learn off. To be able to watch people do things, learn and listen, take it on board. He's quite deep. He's an introvert at heart, despite what you see on the YouTube. He's actually an introvert, and he'll take it all in, mush it around, and then come out with his version.
Yeah. And at what point did you kind of identify in your own mind that this could be a unicorn business that values at over $1 billion?
It just crept up on us, to be honest, and I think that surprised us at that time. I think we all knew we'd got something. We knew it was a great business. We knew it was cash rich. That was fantastic. And we knew that we could do really great things, in terms of building great offices and so GSHQ, GSLC, we've got the other places. We knew we could do all those things, with good staff, great sort of culture that was built. I think it really surprised us when we did the GA thing, that we got labelled as the unicorn, because we just never really heard the term or thought about it. So again, I think everything was going in the right direction for us at that time.
Yeah, and you kind of just felt like you had the market fit and rode the right wave.
Yeah,
essentially.
It was like when COVID came. I remember us calling what we call Cobra meetings, similar name to the government one. And we all sat down and we worked out what we got in the bank, and we worked out how long we could last. And we're like, okay, let's knuckle down. It could be a bumpy ride. And then lo and behold, everyone got locked down, and everyone's working out in some way, shape or form, or walking or whatever, or
just
lounging around in tracksuits. So literally sales just went through the roof, and it was like, oh shit, okay. We didn't see that one coming. And it's just one of them things, being in the right place, the right time, having the right, we'd got a lot of stock. Everything just went our way.
The one thing I resonate from listening to your story before this, and obviously reading more about you, is the fact of like at every point in time, as far as I can see, you've always planned when you're going to exit something. Like in terms of like with the end in mind. Would I be true in saying that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big planner. So with Gymshark, for instance, everything was planned. Everything is really sort of sweet with us all. I still talk to Ben. Might be daily, weekly, whatever he wants. I'm still a shareholder. But yeah, it's planned, and I do that a lot. For my mind, I've sort of got an idea when I'm going to be ready, and when I want to move on myself for whatever the reason is. And it might not be. It's not necessarily about money. For me, with me leaving Gymshark, which is it's beautiful, wonderful, huge, sort of big business now, was that wasn't suiting my style. I wanted to offer more to people. I wanted to people to listen a little bit more than the guys at Gymshark now need to run free a little bit. They need to they've listened to me for long enough. They now need to do it. They now need to see what they've got. What have they got in their locker? The Noel Macks, the Niran Chanas, and people like that are young, very bright, special people. They need to now see what they can do. And, we're still here. I'm still here. I'm not running away. They've got my number. They know any time, day or night, they can call me. But they need to see what they can do for themselves without people like me.
100%. Noel Mack, I remember him when he was a videographer.
Yeah,
like that's how far he's come as a chief of brand.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Hugely talented, and there's some hugely talented people there that I think now's that time for Gymshark to show its way on in a slightly different way, but it's got some real solid foundations to be moving forward on. Yeah. And for me, with the other things, I've got several Haru, Energym. Arcs Alliance, BB Iconics, taking another one, which is good. And then I've got obviously the football, which has reared its head.
Yeah, I want to talk about the football in a bit, but I want to talk about Haru first. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of like what was your thought process between buying that? Is it something you decided because you knew you were going to exit, so you were looking to acquire a brand, or? Yeah,
so I've got Hera and I've got Haru, which is another one. So Hera was I knew Ash White, who was the owner and founder of it. Ash, no secret, came to Gymshark for us to buy him. I think it's about 2018, and we talked through a deal, and it didn't come off, and he went away and carried on with his business. He had a couple of issues in the business. He'd met some people, did a deal with someone for stock, and it just wasn't the right thing that he did, and it caused him a lot of problems. Ash came back to me sort of about the middle of last year. Initially, as are you interested at Gymshark? And I asked Ben, and he wasn't at the time, but I said I was, and said, can give me permission to talk to him? And he said, yeah, no problem. And then I struck a deal with Ash, and the initial deal was 70%. And then Ash would remain a 30% silent shareholder. I think within about a month, Ash decided that wasn't for him. He didn't want to be silent. He wanted, I think, to be more vocal, and it just wasn't going to suit him. And we agreed on a deal to buy the other 30. So got the whole 100% now, which I think is better for me and actually better for Ash in the end. I think
clean break.
Yeah, he'll go on to do something really special again. I mean, he got Hera going with nothing. I think a few £100, or I think his mum and dad might have mortgaged their house. So he's done so well, and what he did. I mean, it was initially famous because of he got it on the Geordie Shore guys, and a few other famous people like that. So it was a brand that was out there, renowned for skinny jeans initially. That was what they're famous for.
Built a cult following on that.
Yeah. But again, Ash, I think he would say himself, had struggled over the last couple of years, just because of this strangulation from, this problem that he had. and it was really restricting him. So I think now he'll go on, you know, the money he's taken, he can go on to do some great things in whatever else he's going to get himself into. And I'm sure he will. He'll make a great success of it. So, you know, I wish him all the best.
And that's another example where you've left it win-win, because you still have a good relationship with him, because you've obviously paid him fairly for the exit of the business. So you still have a good relationship.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't think it's what he would have wanted if he, you know, how can I put it? If he could have got it to where he could have got it, you know, with maybe some better luck and judgment, then, you know, he would have wanted far more for it. And I think, you know, he ultimately wanted it never to sell it and to be a multi-billion pound brand. That wasn't to be. So I think, again, you know, we've got what we both wanted. And, you know, our idea for Hera now is I bought it with my daughters in mind. So I've got Holly and Georgia. So Holly's the CEO. Yep. And Georgia's the CBO, and they've got a lot to live up to. And, you know, I've told them, you know, they've got to live up to it. And, you know, they're not there for the name only. You know, sort of Daddy hasn't bought them a business. I really, really like the business. It's one of the strongest brands. I mean, and those words came from Ben Francis. So when Ben says this is a strong brand, you know it's strong because he knows his stuff. So, you know, bought a strong brand, put my daughters in now, but they're hiring people along the way that are better than them at what they do, and they'll continue to do that with me in the background. And currently got a menswear brand, streetwear. The idea is to put a women's wear by the end of the year, or it's about September, October time, and then, you know, it'll sort of mix together where there'll be, you know, more of a unisex type brand as well as the men's and women's wear. So, you know, we're moving along in a sort of cohesive way.
When you got something that's so male dominant as a brand, how do you bring in the expertise to pivot into women's wear? Because I tend to see in the marketplace there's a lot more choice for women than there is for us as men. I mean, we just bang on a white or a black t-shirt and we're fine, and a pair of jeans, we're sweet. But with women's, it's like there's so many different types of outfits that they can buy. How do you get the right people on the bus to get the right kind of clothing that kind of suit this new style that you're trying to create?
So again, the girls have got experience in obviously the women's side. Holly, especially, you know, that's her forte. They both were design students, but again, they're hiring designers that are much better than them. With both this in mind, so menswear and women's wear. So they've already done that. The collection is already designed. The collection is being built now in super quick time. I mean, you know, they've done an incredible job. It's just about hiring really, really good people and having that foresight to say, okay, fine, we're going to make this into a really, really good brand. But it's about the people, quality, and, you know, showing that this business is having the foundations put into play, ready to make it something much, much bigger than it currently is. So, you know, we're building this. I just took on some new offices. You know, we've been in serviced offices up till now, you know, and that's great. You know, it was fine, but it was costing a fortune. And for the same money as having a small room, I've been able to get an office, but I've had to take a lease and commit myself to it and say, fine, okay. Now
those offices are phenomenal, I must say.
Yeah, I mean, they look nice, but it's all second-hand furniture that we put in there. You know, the staff sort of are not going in sugar-coated. There's a load of second-hand furniture gone in. But it looks nice, and it's going to allow them to grow. And I'm a big believer, you know, if you want to create, you need space.
Yeah, and you need space that inspires you to create.
Yeah.
You can't just... So, obviously, that white box that you're paying a lot for wasn't exactly inspiring people to be creative in terms of design, was it?
It was starting to get on people's nerves. You could feel the tension at times, you know, and you got designers in there who are sort of cramped and people are talking and they're putting headphones on and isolating themselves because they don't want to listen to other people, you know, just talking, you know, it's fine, you know. Yeah. But again, this allows them to go and, you know, go into a room if they want, or, you know, go and just give themselves some space and some freedom and, you know, just feel that air around them and things like that. And, you know, for me, that's what it's about. I mean, you know, the guys are in, they work 4 days a week in. One day they can work at home, but a lot of them come in on that day. Yeah. You know, we give them sort of direction, but slight freedom, you know. We think it's best for the business on the 4 days, and we're going to keep plugging that along unless we're proved otherwise. That's where it'll stay. Yeah. I'm a big believer in, if you want to build a team, you want to build culture, you've got to be together. You have to be around each other, and those young people who come in, because again, I want them as, you know, the people as young as we possibly can, because I'm really interested in that dynamic of Gen Z, etc. They learn when they're in, just by looking across, like I did. We talked about earlier, watching people. I mean, I can, rebuild an engine on a truck. I never went to a college. I never went to anything. I watched someone do it who taught me while they were doing it.
Yeah.
And I can weld. I never was ever, was actually watching. Okay, can I have a go and doing that, and other things like that. And that's been one of the things I've learned, and I just think that's invaluable. Watching people to learn. I mean, again, yeah.
We were talking before the podcast, and you were telling me about, I asked you what one of the most key important skills is in your opinion, and it's like that ability to listen. Yep. It's knowing when you should listen. And I was saying to you about when you do so many reps of a podcast, it's like when you listen to podcast 5 compared to listening to the Reebok founder. Yep. It's like Joe Foster. You can see that there's a lot more listening going on. And it's like, it wasn't lost on me that you thought that was such an important skill.
Oh, for definite. You've got 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Yeah, it's for
says
a reason.
It all. It's and I think, for me, when you're looking at people and you think, you've got the quiet guy at the back who's taking it all in, and you've got the loud one at the front who's listening to nothing. I know which one I probably was the quiet guy at the back listening. That's my philosophy, and as I say, that's what's worked for me. Say learning how to build an engine, or looking at business, and I've listened to many like podcasts and people talking about stuff, and these guys have got all this wisdom. You listen to them and think, actually, I already do that. You do it without knowing. Yeah. A lot of the time, but again, it's nice to recognise that you do it from someone who's a business guru of some description, but listening to me is good.
Yeah. How important has fun been through this whole journey to you, though? Because I kind of feel like from looking around where you live and how you operate and everything that's going on around here in your home, and I just see a man that's had a lot of fun in life.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of. It probably doesn't seem like that at times to people. I can be quite serious, but for me, I've gone through life with. I've partied, I've gone to clubs, I've done all the drinking and all the rest of it that I need to do. But I've worked really hard at the same time. So we used to do that, go to clubs in Birmingham back in the day, and then go straight to work at 2 a.m, because I used to finish at 2 in them days. Not like now. So it used to finish at 2, and you think, well, I can't go home to bed because I won't get up. I'll go straight into work. I've done plenty. Again, for me, different things now that I enjoy. Enjoy the gym. I always have done. I don't think there's any loser with the gym. I think for me, it gives you so many different things that are relatable to business. In that, if you're going to build your shoulders up, you can't just build them up in 2 minutes. You can put all the steroids you want in you. It still won't happen in 2 minutes. You're going to have to take time, and it's going to be layer after layer after layer.
It's doing the reps, isn't it?
Doing the reps, doing the hard work. And, again, no substitute for hard work. I know it's a dirty word nowadays, and Stephen Bartlett talks about it quite a lot, and he's absolutely right.
What, in the fact that there's not enough hard work in the world now in terms of like staying the course of something?
I think it's because it's criticised all the time. Then throwing the mental health card in all the time. And I'm a massive advocate for mental health, and anyone who knows me knows that. I did a load of stuff at Gymshark by bringing in a load of mental health experts to help athletes and staff and everyone, and it's still there now today if you look online. I'm a massive advocate of it because, again, I'm also a massive advocate for counsellors and stuff like that. I'm not an advocate for someone giving someone a tablet and thinking that's going to be
it's
right.
Not going to solve the problem.
No, I'm a counsellor person, and I've had lots of counselling over time for different things. Openly admit it. But for me, it's that thing about the criticism or whatever of hard work, or whatever that definition of hard work is. It's hard, working hard and working smart. I'm totally in agreement with that. But I don't know any successful person who's got their wealth and success from work that hasn't worked really hard, or an athlete that didn't work really hard. Yeah. You talk about Kobe Bryant or Jordan or Ronaldo. Ronaldo's there like after hours doing work, kick after kick after free kick. And it's the same with business people. I believe you have to work hard. But I think today it's almost like a dirty word, because it's, what about the mental health and stuff like that? I think
it's an easy. It seems like an easy route for people to take to get out of doing the hard work, because it's quite easy at this moment in time to say lots of things like you can pull out different cards like ADHD or mental health or a race card here, there and everywhere, and kind of use that instead of being self-realizing with the fact of like, hang on a minute, there's a trigger, there's an issue here, I've got to deal with it myself and kind of move and accentuate through it. You're essentially stopping yourself from developing it, in essence, because you don't accept the fact that you're the one with the issue, so you'll just pull out a card.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't, know anyone who probably hasn't got some sort of issue somewhere, and they might put a name to it or not. I know, my past I have. Resilience gets you round things, and a lot of things that I think people today put a name to. It's just normal life. Life throws you loads of bumps in the road as you go along. Yeah, all the time, and you can come up against it, and you're going to have to get past that somehow. So you need to work out how to get past that. And if that's counselling, fine. If it's having a word with yourself, or whatever it might be, you've got to do to get past it and build up your resilience. Because again, what you want to do is the next time that comes up, you don't want it to be a road bump. You just want to drive straight over it and it'll be fine. And, because you don't want to keep having that same road bump all the time. So trying to work out, and that then gives you resilience. And, I think if you're going to be successful in any way, whatever it might be at, whether, that's an Olympic swimmer or, a YouTuber, whatever it is, you're going to have different road bumps that you're going to come up against. And you've just got to work out how to navigate them and build your resilience up to be able to do that, because I think otherwise I just don't think you're going to be who you think you want to be, because I don't think you're going to put the yards in.
Yeah.
And, I just believe you've got to put the yards in to do it. I mean, I was never the most intelligent person from school, never went to university, but I've worked hard, and my mantra when I was in the waist game was, if I work 7 days and the other guys work 5 days, that's about 100 days a year extra that I'm working. I'm going to be 100 days ahead of them by the end of the year, which is a lot. Yeah. And that's the way I worked.
I take a similar mantra to everything I'm trying to build with what I'm trying to build here. It's like, if you want to be the best in a podcast or anything in a certain country, it's like, well, how many of them actually leave to go and do podcasts in other places, to go and bring this knowledge into that country? It's like, not many people are willing to back themselves in that way. So go and be that guy, go and be that person who will back them. But one of the things that I presume that you really had to work through and overcome in your journey is the fact of, like, obviously the marriage breakdown, and obviously having to get a divorce and all that kind of stuff that you had to go through with that. And I suppose that taught you a lot of lessons in life that you took forward.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the toughest thing. I mean, my dad passed when I was 30. That's one of the tough ones. But again, what do you do? He's passed. I've got to crack on, and I want to prove to him, whether he's here or not, that I can do what I can do. When you have a marriage or a relationship breakup, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. And for me, it definitely was. It was possibly the hardest thing that I've ever done, because again, I don't want to fail. I see myself as a winner, so you treat it as a failure. It's hard on the kids. You're trying to do your best around that, and hopefully myself and my ex-wife did that. We talked today, still talk, no problem at all. But it does put you back, and in terms of financially, it'll put you back for certain. But that's just the way it is. And then, mentally it can affect you. And you just got to come again. It's a road bump, and you're going to have to go find, well, okay, what am I going to do about this now? We are where we are. I want to move forward. So, again, for me, it was, okay, you've got to double down on everything and, prove to everyone that I can do what I've got to do, and I'm still going to be what I'm going to be.
Because it can be hard for a man as driven as you, that's doing as much as you are doing in business, which probably had, because you were probably out of the house, that probably had a reason to do with maybe the breakdown in its essence, because you're out there working so hard. But it's like when a situation like that happens, you know for sure in any part of the world that you've just lost half your working capital straight off the bat to go and do what you're trying to do to provide for your family. So it's quite a difficult pill for a man to swallow when that happens, to go through all that.
I think I took a slightly different view at a certain point. I didn't initially, because again you get quite bitter at times, because again, as you say, whatever the percentages you lose, and it's generally a bit more than 50, you feel really aggrieved, and think, whatever. When I looked at it actually objectively and looked back, and again I had help with this, I had counselling, and people start to talk to you about different things, and I'm a risk. I like taking risk. So I've risked everything I've ever had, sometimes at business, literally the roll almost of a dice, in business, because again, if I'm all in, I'm all in. What I realised was that, when I left, that gave that money to my now ex-wife, she wouldn't risk it. So there was always going to be something there for my children. Yeah. So in fact, even though I've done what I've done and I've been successful and everything is okay, I didn't know that at the time, so it was that was my sort of way of thinking that I came round to was, well, at least that's banked.
She's protected that.
She's protected that, fair play, and she won't spend it. She'll look after it, and that'll be good because my kids, will get a reasonable start. Now, I've been successful and that's been okay, but at that time, that's how I rationalised it, and that's the box that I put it into.
So how important then to you is kind of like mentorship and coaching and like counselling and all that kind of stuff? How important is that to you in terms of like everything that you're doing? Is that something that's appeared right from the offset, or is it something you've brought in later down the track?
Probably, counselling to me was probably since mid-2000s.
Yeah.
When you sort of realise that you can't figure everything out yourself. And, for me then it was a case of, right, I can't figure it out, I'm going to need help. And, listening to certain people, different areas. I did the hypnosis one, that was quite good. Yeah. I quite liked that, it was really good. Found it as a lovely woman that I went to, Fiona, and she's still around now, Fiona Campbell. Went to her, and she was amazing with different things that I needed help with. That way, I think counselling is really good. Mentoring, I just love. For me, having the right people around you. I didn't realise the sort of people around me when I was really younger were doing that. It was just guys that I knew in the business that were there, and I was talking to. I didn't probably realise at that time that I was just absorbing everything more from everyone. Mentoring them days probably wasn't around. Today it is. I think I told you earlier. I do about 2 hours a week, 4 half-an hours, where literally anyone who DMs me, or that's on Insta or LinkedIn or whatever, I'll find them a slot as soon as I possibly can. Just bung it in the diary.
And you're going to regret saying that on this podcast.
I know. But it's a really good thing. It works for me. I haven't got all the time in the world, and it will be. Sometimes I've got to say, right, it's going to take you a couple of weeks. But, for me, I'll do my best to try and answer people and give them half an hour and answer some questions and just give them a bit of comfort. Sometimes it's, hard.
Yeah,
they don't really want it. It's they've got a brand and they're in their bedroom and they're doing this, that, and the other. And I'm like, you're not committed enough.
Yeah,
you're not doing this, you're not doing that, and you can either hear it or not hear it. And other times it's slightly different, but yeah.
Because that was one of the key things that stood out for me is that conversation that you had with Ben and Lewis back in the day. It's like, do you want to be a lifestyle brand, have your R8s, have your few million quid a year, boom, 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 or do you want to be bigger than that? And then obviously Ben replied to that he wanted to be as big as
Under Armour.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, then there's going to be lots of changes, and we've that has actually happened. In terms of the types of changes we talked about, they have happened.
Yeah.
And it was I think the ability of Ben to adapt to those changes that are making what he is now.
Yeah, and it's if you are someone that's going to reach out to and ask your advice, you got to be willing to listen to what they're asking for. essentially, because it's no use asking you for advice and then not implementing the changes that you see.
Well, they can make their choice, can't they?
Yeah.
I don't say what I say is absolute gold, and they should just go and do it. For them, they have to absorb it, see if it's right for them, and then put it into practice. But the things for me that a lot of people lack is like that, like we talked about earlier, just that you're going to realise this is hard. You do realise that if you can't pay someone, you're going to have to go and find the money yourself from somewhere. How are you going to juggle this? How are you going to juggle that? It's not all roses. Because once you've sold them few T-shirts to a few of your mates on Instagram, and you think you've now got a brand, there's actually a load of other stuff to do before it actually you get there. And you might fail 5 times, 10 times, whatever number of times first. But if you haven't got the resilience to get back up again and go again, then you're not going to be an entrepreneur, and you're going
to be knocked down a fair few times in the pursuit of what lights you up. Yeah, essentially,
just get back up more times you knock down. It's as simple as that. But you're going to get knocked down. We all do, and if you don't, you didn't try.
And it's about how you get knocked down, isn't it? Because you think about it from a boxing point of view, it's like, how do you take that punch so you can ride it so you can get up within 10 seconds? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of mentality in business.
Sometimes you've got to take longer. Sometimes it's a big punch, and you've got to just gather your thoughts, and maybe it almost looks like you've lost. Yeah, you lost that fight, but you've got to get back up again and come back again. So it doesn't necessarily always mean that you jump back up, and a bit like Tyson Fury that time. Maybe you've got to stay down because you are hurt this time. But you can either stay down, maybe never get back in the ring or never bother, or you can go, okay, fine, I'm getting back in the ring. I'm going to do better this time.
But what is it now that you think truly lights you up and gets you like juiced up and going now?
I just like a challenge. I love a challenge. I mean, I like to contribute. The companies I've now joined and invested in, I know I will be able to contribute and in ways that they want me to. If I can't contribute, I don't want to be there. It's as simple as that. I'm not there to earn loads of money out of something necessarily. If I invest, obviously, if it comes, that's fantastic. But I need to contribute. That's what gets me up. I'm learning at the moment. I've gone from sort of Gymshark, which is one thing, to now several things. So I've got to learn a different way of life. But I quite like that. It's a bit scary now and again.
Even for you now?
Yeah, it is. But you've got to have that butterflies and think, okay, I've now got to readapt my life to this new way, where I'm spending 2 days here. So I'm off to Belfast next week to meet up with the Hera guys. It's a great concept. It's the pre-loved clothes. They've got the charities, and pre-loved clothes is just going to explode. Second hand. No one wants to call it that. But sort of.
And is that when you say pre-loved, is that like second-hand designer or second-hand anything?
Mainly designer. Because obviously that's where the value is. Yeah. But they're linked to all the charities, and we want to get them into retail now. That's a huge thing. We'll do it at Hera at some point where you can send the clothes back. And, we're sort of closing the loop, sustainability and everything, and linking Hera to that for us. And I just think they've got a great concept, they've got a great platform, and it's going to be huge.
I think you've bought as well 2 brands that you can kind of put together and that you've seen that. Yeah. And how, obviously, look, when you look at a lot of successful businesses, what I've understood over time is the fact of if you most businesses that want a marketing department, they'll buy a great marketing business for whatever they need and plug it in. Is that something you believe in, kind of buying these businesses and amalgamating them together?
I think you can do, and I think that is definitely a way forward. Again, if you built yourself up with using consultants, say in marketing, for instance, and then you want to, or tech's a good example. Yeah. The small tech company that have been helping you out, and that works for you. Then buy them in. If not, you're just buying in really, really good people, and sometimes it's almost like buying the company because you're buying, the talent. But for me, I'm positioned at the moment in areas that I really like and I really think is the future. So, I'll use the word used clothing because that's what everyone understands at the moment, like that's on Depop and, thrift and things like that. That really works for me because I think it's going to be huge. It's going to be the fastest growing part of fashion. for a long time, especially with Gen Z and stuff like that. Cybersecurity, I mean, it's just like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
And the guys at ARCS, they've got something that's to do with the supply chain. So most of the time, your attacks come through your supply chain,
right?
Because if you're a big company, you've probably got really good cyber security, but your supply chain maybe hasn't. So
because they may be in China, they may be India, they may be Turkey.
or a little company in Wolverhampton or West Midlands or something like that. So again, they haven't got good security, and that's where they'll come through. So that's where they are. So yeah, there are a couple of really good ones. Energym is energy from gym equipment. So
basically, as people are using the apparatus, it's generating energy to sell back to the grid.
Rowers, and then it will translate to there is technology to do it from, say, a deadlift, but I mean it's mainly from a machine that moves.
And how big an industry do you think that'll be?
Oh, I think it's huge. I think as we're going on now with the way power is going and particularly electric and everything else and sustainability, it's a no-brainer again. So I don't just do it for the sake of it. I'm looking at areas that I really think there's growth in.
So you're always looking for, okay, what's the blue ocean here? Where's the world going to, rather than where is it at now?
Yes.
And where can I position a bit of capital so that I've got a little bit of an interest in that area of how that's growing?
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I don't want to look at what's now. I'm trying to look ahead. And
how far ahead do you think you are looking?
To me, I think Gen Z in particular, in Hera, Haru in particular, Gen Z is particularly attractive. So, that's sort of they're still young enough to be not buying stuff at the moment. But again, what they're going to be influenced by, what they're going to do, what social media platforms are they going to be on by then, how they're going to operate. I watch my girlfriend's son at the moment, he's 14, and, Liverpool will be on, which he's a Liverpool fan, but he's got that on one screen. He's got his Xbox on this screen and his phone on here. And they're doing he's doing at 14, which is Gen Z, he's doing all three. So for me, it's like working out why and wherefore and how that can apply to business.
Yeah.
And, how are they thinking? Because again, you want to know how your customer's thinking to know what they're going to purchase, buy, what they like, what they don't like. Do they like your brand?
So you're watching, you're out there watching what Gen Z are doing.
Yeah, do they like your brand? Because again, I think that's going to be really, really important. Well, I know it is. It's as simple as that.
And if you were going to give some advice in terms of like where my audience should be looking right now, in terms of like what the best places to look for the up and coming opportunities in terms of like for business and that, where would you
look at what
them?
Gen Z want and like, and start examining that. And there's some really good people out there who've got some really good studies. There's a guy called Jay Richards, quite a good friend of mine. I've done lots of work with him. But he just, they do lots and lots of research and finding out what these people really want, not what people just say. What do they really want?
The deep core values of these
where
people.
are they going, what they're thinking about. So if you look at, for me, look at me as a customer, would I go and buy something used? I probably have. I know I haven't. Yeah. In fact, I have. I just bought a T-shirt last week for my very first one. I'm 63. I bought a used T-shirt, but it's not my normal way of doing things. And I'd have to, think slightly different. Whereas what we know about Gen Z is it's just normal.
Yeah.
They're happy.
See, that I think Depop really revolutionised that kind of thing, because a lot of girls have got the Depop account. They're selling pre-loved. It's called pre-loved.
Pre-loved is the right word, yeah.
And some of these bags where they're paying $800 for it new and then selling it for $499. It's like it's a pretty good way of operating if you've got what you need out of it, but it's still a great item.
Yeah. There's just a long way to go now, and getting people and getting companies and involved more to bring their stock back. The fast fashion is. It's still going to be there, but how are the guys, the Gen Z, going to think of it? It's generally not good for the environment. It's throwaway. It's this. It's that. How can we handle that? How can we help manage that? If it's going to stay, what are we going to do with it?
Well, there's when you look at these countries like Bali and all parts of Indonesia and places like that are getting where the garbage patch is kind of circling around them, and they're all getting, and the beaches are getting contaminated with all this waste. People are starting to realise now that there is a cost to this, and the cost goes way beyond the £7 that you pay Primark for the t-shirt.
Yeah, it's a responsibility for everyone, and the problem is, I mean, again, I come from a recycling background and stuff like that, so it's true to my heart, and to think that we could recycle the whole of a dirty nappy, even including the solids, was profound, and everything can be done. You've just got to work really hard to do it, and everyone has to buy in. That's the problem. Yeah. And most of the time is everyone doesn't want to buy in, and they use the terms of changing the world. It's a really big thing to do. Yeah. You need it to break it down smaller and start working on different things. And I think different industries need to take responsibility for various things and work together to do it, along with governments and everyone else. I think you're not going to do it if you just put it all on industry. You're not going to do it if you put it all on government, and not do it if you just put it all on the consumer. It's going to be a combination of everything. And again, that thing I talked about earlier, everyone's got to give a little bit to get to where you want to get to in the end. And
the actual people have got to understand that the investments that you put into making that happen will pay you off down the track, because you'll have more business anyway.
It's long term. Yeah. So again, it's this. As I say, everyone has to give in, everyone has to put into the pot to be able to make something work, because it won't work otherwise. That's for sure. I bought a couple of forests. I've got 2 forests, one in Scotland, one in Warwickshire. Because again, it's legacy to me, and I can, if I need to do any offsetting of any description, I can do it in house. I don't know much about it yet, so I've got to sort loads of things out, but. Yeah, so
I love the fact that though you're buying it to protect it.
I've got one in Warwickshire, which really close to my heart. It's only up the road from where I live. And actual fact, it's a site of special scientific interest. It's got rare fauna and butterflies and things on it. HS2, which has gone straight through the middle of the country, has had to go underneath it. Right, so it stopped HS2 in its tracks, and they had to go, I think it's 90 metres underneath my land. So they can't come through it. They wouldn't let them come through it. Wow. So that will be there in my eyes now. If HS2 can't come through it, nothing's ever going to touch it, and it'll be there forever, because I'm never going to sell it. It needs to stay as a wood.
And you're going to put that in trust so that it's hold that.
We harvest the wood. We have to take. We've got a plan to harvest wood and then replant and harvest and replant.
Yeah, so you are still turning that into a form of business that pays for itself.
Yeah, if it washes its face, I'll be really happy. But I mean, for me, it's legacy that I want my great grandchild to sort of be walking through it one day and go, "This was great granddad's." Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. So is land and wooded area and farmland and all that stuff? Is that somewhere that you're passionate about? Keep investing into that area as you go along.
I don't know enough about it. I mean, I've ventured into the woodland as a sort of touching point. I'd like to know a bit more about it. But I know some people, so again, there's some really clever players in the marketplace, who are wealthy families who have invested in farmland and producing food. Again, I think that's a really big area. Again, there's going to be 9 billion people at some point. I think 2050. And I don't know how we're going to feed them. So again, I think some real players are actually investing in things like food production, micro food production, and that fascinates me as well.
I went to a wedding the other day, and there was some big farmers at this wedding, because like family down the track are all in that area, and one of them was telling me that they're going to sell a bit of farmland, and I've been thinking about, I want to own a piece of farmland, because I think, like you say, production of food and quality land is going to get harder and harder to get hold of, and if you can own a piece of it and then rent it out and buy a bigger piece and expand that's massive. That's a massive play.
It's future. Food's going to be different in the future. I mean, I think they're going to have to think of different ways of just your normal everyday farming, and we were looking at, I was reading about robotics, I think it was last week or the week before, on farms. So again, literally like small robotics sort of planting and picking and stuff like that. That's what's going to happen. And again, micro foods.
Yeah, I've seen a lot. I've been reading a lot of studies into this about it's like a Japanese way of farming, isn't it? That type thing.
And there's vertical as well and things like that. So there's lots of different ways I think will start to come out, because again, we've got to feed people. And mass production of things. I mean, I get a little bit sort of tetchy on some people who start talking about organic everything and this, that, and it's just not possible to do everything like that if you're going to feed the number of people we're going to feed. So I think we've got to come up with better ways of doing it, whether that's micro farming or, whatever we need to do. We need to, again, pull together, work it out. But I do know some of the big family funds are invested in farming. That's for sure. So that's a little indicator.
And if you look at some of the biggest transfers in wealth that happened through COVID, it was like the Chinese were buying a lot of land in Australia, farmland in Australia, inside and buying the major farms in Australia. And there's a reason for that. And then in America, you look at Bill Gates. He's one of the biggest farmland owners in the country.
Well, same as Dyson in this country.
Yeah,
I think they got more land than the Queen, but
yeah,
similar things. They're going into things which might not seem very futuristic. But then you've got the land and you've got the rest of it to start doing the robotics and the micro farming and things like that, micro food.
Yeah, so if you were going to allocate capital, you'd rather allocate it to more land than you would, say, commercial or something like that now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixture of both for me. I mean, I'm not familiar enough with crypto and all those other things, the NFTs.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn. I've got a couple of people I'm talking to. But, some of the other stuff makes a bit more sense for me. So thinking about food, okay, yeah, that's logical. We've got to feed everyone. That's really logical. When I've got NFTs here, I'm thinking, well, I don't quite understand that. I can't sort of touch it.
But you'll invest in this while you think, while you're getting educated.
Start learning about that.
Yeah, and that's just and you just saying that. Saying how willing you are in your 60s to learn about NFTs and learn about crypto in your 60s.
Need to know.
And that's a key point. It's like, you're happy to learn about anything, but you just want to, and you'll happily get in a Gen Z to talk to you about it, won't you?
Yeah. I mean, I think listening's one of the great things, as we said earlier. So, when I'm talking to Archie, the girlfriend's son, I'm also trying to learn at the same time, But it's like, okay, you've got 3 things on there. You're watching the football. I would have just watched the football, which I was I was just watching it downstairs. That's enough for me. But he's not. He's on 3 different things. So that tells you something. We've got to learn.
So guys, if you really be self-aware when you're looking at things in the world, don't just look at it for what it actually is. Look at it for what it can be as well.
Especially in business.
Yeah, because it'll open you up to a whole new array of things that you can do and see that you perhaps haven't seen the perspective of before.
Yep.
If there was like one piece of if you have to check out tomorrow and you just had to leave one piece of golden advice on the next generation in terms of business mindset and everything that you've learned in life and put it all together, what would you leave?
It's pretty simple to me. Is you just don't give up. Don't, and that getting knocked down, because you will get knocked down. If you're going to make it, you've got to get back up, and that's just simple. I think you couple that to hard work. I think they go hand in hand, but it's always about the getting up to me. Getting back up again after you've been hit, because you're going to get hit in your life with with things that are unfair sometimes. Some things are fair, some are not, some are self-inflicted, some are not, but you will get knocked down. So again, it's getting back up again, dusting yourself off, thinking I don't want that to happen again if I can help it, and then moving back on.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and one of the, like I said, I'm going to say this again, one of the most extraordinary things for me looking at you and everything that you've achieved and everything that you're doing in life is just how willing you are to learn from younger people, how willing you are to look at things from a different angle of perspective, and also how you're in your 60s, but it doesn't mean you stop training. Do you know what I mean? Because when you train your body, you're also training your mind.
Train your mind as well.
Yeah. And I just think seeing that as a 34-year-old man going into, like, to see that in you, I'm like, okay, that's because I've always seen that for myself. I'll still be training at 62.
Yeah, and everyone's different as well with what they want to train. I love lifting, but I admire runners, swimmers, whatever you want to do. For me, is okay. Just don't try and tell me to run or try and tell me to swim. And I won't try and tell you to lift. For me, it's whatever you want to do. I never wanted to be the sort of skinny older guy who could run marathons. That just wasn't me. I wanted sort of to feel a bit better about myself and, feel something different. And that lifting did it for me.
I love it. Thank you.
And lifting to me is also a bit like meditation, because you try and think of anything else when you're lifting a couple of 100 kilos deadlift. You can't. So your mind goes blank, which is good.
So have you ever had an unbelievable idea come whilst you're lifting? Like an absolute game changer?
No, because I'm only thinking of lifting.
Right. Yeah. So there's left no room for nothing else.
Nothing else.
But on saying that, I bet you've left the gym after not thinking about business for an hour when you've just been thinking about lifting and had some extraordinary ideas.
Yeah, it clears your mind because again, you've gone in with some stress. You've gone in thinking, "Oh, what a shit day that was," and then I always come out after I've lifted. It's only one way out, and I feel good about myself. Even if I haven't had the best workout, I will feel better than I walked in.
Yeah, I love it. And guys, do me a solid favour, yeah. That's Paul Richardson. He's obviously been involved in some of the biggest brands in the UK and doing some unbelievable things. And I know we're gonna have some unbelievable brands to talk about in the next few years as you come back on. But thank you so much for your time. And guys, do us a solid favour, yeah. Share this on social. Drop a comment on all the things on social media as well. If you can leave us a review, if you can DM me and Paul and just let us know how the podcast went for you in terms of what you've got out of it and everything else, that would be sensational too. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Frankie Lee Podcast.